Welcome to Tech and Fire. In this video, I will talk about one of my problems. I spent thousands of euros last year on something that's completely taken over my life, and I cannot really stop. You are probably thinking, you know exactly what this is about, but trust me, you don't. At the end of this video, you'll understand why this type of addiction could be quite dangerous. So here's my confession. Let me try to start by painting you a picture. It's 2 a.m. and I'm sitting in my basement, surrounded by blinking lights and humming machines. I have my credit card in my hand and I'm about to make another purchase, hoping that this will solve my latest issue. So my heart is racing, my palms are sweaty,
Knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti.
and I'm getting that familiar rush of excitement mixed with guilt. Sounds familiar? But here's where your assumptions are probably wrong. I'm not buying drugs, I'm not ordering alcohol, I'm not even gambling online or playing games to no end. I'm doing something that most people would call harmless, maybe even productive. I'm buying another server or another server component for my home lab. And before you laugh or click away, let me tell you something. This cost me sleep, frustration, countless hours of my life. It's taking over my basement, my garage, and honestly, my entire existence. The beginning of everything. Of course, it started innocently enough, like most of these things do. So, more than 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to learn more about networking and server administration, like skill up for work. Maybe this will help me land a better job in the future. Sounds pretty responsible, right? So, I decided to build my first server for about 400 or 500 euros. It had an Intel CPU, a Celeron CPU, an energy efficient motherboard, and 2 terabyte desktop upgraded Toshiba hard drives. Nothing fancy. At the time, the landscape of NAS focused operating systems did not look great. You could use Windows if you're a masochist, Open Media Vault, or TrueNAS, or these were at least the operating systems that I knew about at the time. I didn't want to pay for Synology because I found their hardware to be pretty weak in terms of performance, although I appreciated the simplicity of their software. So with this first Intel Celeron CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, and 2 terabytes hard drive. Actually, I think there were 2 terabyte hard drive. What did I decide to do? I found Xpenology. Xpenology was a community of people who loved Synology software. I can see that they are still online. Not entirely sure if the members of this community are active or not. But at the time, I decided to go with this. So these people who loved Synology software but hated their hardware, they reverse engineered their DMS software to work on any PCs. At the time, this was more than enough for me. I put together the server, and for the next few years, I had no issues. I was running Plex, I was running a VPN server, and the Nextcloud. That first year after I built it, it was like nothing I've ever experienced. It felt like I was in control of something powerful, no more cloud services. I was in control of my files and I was in control of my media. But here's the thing about that first taste of anything addictive, it's never enough. The slippery slope. Within the next few years, I convinced myself I needed more RAM, a better CPU. I need to have hardware transcoding for Plex. How can I just run a proper lab with just 4 gigs of RAM, right? So I spent again some money on upgrading the memory. Then I realized I need faster storage. Those old spinning drives just weren't cutting it anymore. So here we go, opening the door to SSD fast storage. And of course, this ended up going into buying more network equipment as well. I, of course, need a managed switch, right? And the proper router or firewall. So this consumer grade networking gear, this ASUS routers or Netgear routers that you can buy off the shelf, were not cutting it anymore. So you see where this is going. I spent over 2,000 euros and my single server had become a mini rack with a managed switch, a patch panel, and horrible cooling. Not a professional rack, just a cheap one from Amazon, barely fit in my basement between my water pump and my electrical panel. But I justified every purchase. This is educational, this is investing in my career, this is practical. That's what I told myself. Next, I decided to go a little bit more high end. So at the time, I had an Intel gaming PC that I was not really using for gaming anymore. And I thought, okay, this is going to be my next server. And with this, I discovered Unraid. And I discovered a lot of videos on YouTube that were trying to teach you how you can run a NAS. And you can also have a gaming machine by sharing resources, by doing GPU pass through, and so on. Of course, it was just a matter of time until I ran out of resources on this one. The RAM was at 100% utilization, CPU was always above 90% utilization, and so on. Next is where the things got serious. I discovered enterprise equipment, real enterprise stuff, the kind of gear that the top companies throw away when they upgrade their data centers. So suddenly, my little desktop PC server looked like a toy. So I started browsing government auctions, liquidation sites, and Facebook Marketplace with the intensity of a day trader watching stock prices. In the middle of the pandemic, when companies were going bankrupt left and right, I managed to find a gem. A dual Xeon server with a whopping 96 gigs of RAM. ECC RAM. It had hard disk trays that looked like a good deal for less than €1,000. In a corporate world, this thing cost maybe 10, 20K when it was new. How could I not buy it? Never mind it drew 160 watts at idle. Never mind it sounded like a jet engine when I first turned it on and my wife rushed to the basement asking, why am I vacuuming? Never mind I had absolutely no practical need for so much computing power. I bought it anyway. Now let's talk about the real cost of running this thing. My electrical bill skyrocketed. And there's the cooling. You can't just run enterprise servers in a regular basement without proper cooling. So I installed a dedicated AC unit, another few thousands, plus installation costs. And of course, don't forget about the internet. Once you have all this equipment, you need the bandwidth to actually use it. I upgraded to the most expensive fiber connection available in my area. That's another €6 per month, plus minus. And the space. What started in a corner of my basement, now I have PC components everywhere. But the real cost is time. I spend at least 3 hours every single week in my basement configuring, troubleshooting, upgrading, researching the next purchase. And all of that for the price of independence, technological independence from the big tech. It means taking back the control of my data and the digital assets that I own. It feels productive. It feels educational. It feels like self improvement. When someone spends €500 on alcohol in a month, people might recognize that as a problem. When I spend €500 on networking equipment, people think I'm dedicated to my career in IT. But the dopamine hit is exactly the same. That rush when you find a great deal on server or networking hardware, that's the same chemical reaction gamblers get when they hit the jackpot. And the worst part, there's always something more to buy, always an upgrade, always a new technology to explore. Is the storage getting full? You can just buy more drives. Is the network too slow? Upgrade the switches. You need more compute, more power? Just add another server. Are you afraid that your server might go down when you're not at home? You can always add an UPS or create a high availability cluster. So it never ends. Now let's talk a little bit about the community that enables all of this. The community is also very dangerous. This homelab community is incredibly supportive and knowledgeable, but they're also enablers. There are entire Reddit communities dedicated to showing off your latest purchase. Discord servers where people share deals on enterprise equipment, YouTube channels like this one that make you feel like you need the latest hardware to be taken seriously. It's like having drinking buddies, except instead of encouraging you to have another beer, they're encouraging you to buy one more server. And Justification, it's always the same. It's for learning, it's for your resume. You might need this for a project someday. I've heard them all because I've used them all. So let's be clear. The equipment isn't about learning. It was all about the thrill of ownership, the satisfaction of having something physical, something that you could touch and control. No more cloud. I have to say now that close to the end of 2025, the only subscription that I still have is Spotify. And at this point, I will probably drop down to the despair of my wife. Big tech knows more about you than your own family does. Every photo, every search, every private message, they own it all. But here's the thing, you don't need them. Owning and building a home lab puts you back in control. Your data stays on your hardware, in your home. No tracking, no algorithms. Um, Nobody is deciding what you see. There are no servers halfway across the world holding your personal life. And this is not about being paranoid. It's about being free. Technology independence, it's not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. So my advice would be to start building your home lab today. The hardest part about admitting that you have a home lab addiction is that everyone thinks it's a good problem to have. Well, at least you're not drinking. Well, at least it's educational. What matters is when something starts controlling your life instead of you controlling it. And in my case, my home lab has definitely taken control. I was checking deal websites multiple times a day.
Brace yourself, madam, for an all-out bidding war.
I was staying up late just to finish this one configuration. I was troubleshooting Docker containers that were failing. So how did I go about this? I tried to moderate my behavior. So instead of addressing the real cause, I set monthly budgets that I immediately broke. I promised I wouldn't buy any new equipment for 3 months. Then I found loopholes and exceptions, and equipment broke down. I told myself I'll only buy equipment that I actually need for specific projects, but somehow every piece of equipment became essential for something. I tried selling some of my older equipment to justify new purchases, but for every server I sold, I bought two more. The problem wasn't the equipment, the problem was me and my relation with this equipment. So, what next? What's the current state and what's the way forward? Today, my home lab is way too inefficient. It's not redundant. I do not have proper backups. My electricity bill needs to go back to normal. My basement should become usable space again. And my family needs services which just work. I need to focus on actually using what I have instead of constantly buying new toys. But this addiction is not gone, it's somehow managed. So I still get that urge when I see a great deal on server hardware. I still feel that pull when someone posts their latest acquisition on Reddit. The difference is that now I recognize these feelings and what they are. And I have some basic strategies to deal with them that don't necessarily involve opening my wallet right away. So, what's the real lesson? You're watching this video and thinking about your own hobbies or interests. Ask yourself these questions. Are you buying things you don't actually use? Are you spending more money that you don't have on equipment you don't need? Are you choosing this hobby over relations or responsibilities? Most importantly, do you feel like you're in control? Or does your hobby feel like it's in control of you? These are questions I wish I'd asked myself when I started this journey more than 10 years ago. They might have saved me a lot of cash and countless hours of my life. So, moving forward, this home lab journey taught me something important about modern consumer culture. We live in a world where it's incredibly easy to buy things. One click purchases, fast shipping, targeted ads that know exactly what you want to see. And we live in a world where acquiring things often feels more satisfying than actually using them. The anticipation of a package arriving can be more exciting than what's in the box. The solution isn't to never buy anything, it's to be intentional about your purchases and honest about your motivations. In my next video, I will break down the plans for my home lab for the next 12 months, and I will use YouTube to keep myself accountable for that promise. What I would like to do is to have an offsite backup. Currently, there's one single point of failure. although that server has RAID on it. That's definitely not enough. And I would like to get my electricity bill under control by having something more power efficient. I think these two goals should be more than enough for the upcoming year. The scenarios alone, in order to achieve them, are complex enough with many implications. So I think for 2026, I'm going to work towards these two goals. Thank you very much for following. Please like, subscribe, come back, and let's do this journey together.